but you never steer me wrong. So lead on, good shepherd, lead on.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the For His Namesake podcast, where we talk about leadership skills for this generation that they can use not only in their church, school, and community, but most importantly, their entire Christian walk. And so today with us, we have Brother Ken Cash, the current dean at Southeastern FWB College. So glad to have you on today, and just so everybody can know a little about you, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Casey, thank you for the opportunity. Again, my name is Ken Cash. I do presently serve as the dean at Southeastern and have been there. We're in our third year now. Grew up in Indiana, came to know the Lord as a teenager, was not in a Christian home, and so came of faith. My boss, actually, where I was working, actually led me to Christ when I was 17, and just have had a pursuit for the Lord since. And man, our journey has been kind of everywhere, literally. I've served as a student pastor, I've pastored, I have been a missionary through IM, and now currently serving at the college. So Jane and I, we have been married now for 43 years. We have two daughters, both of them married preachers, and so I tell folks I didn't mess them up too bad. And they're church planting in Illinois. And I currently have three grandsons and a granddaughter due in July. So that's kind of the quick version.
That's awesome. And so over years, and you kind of mentioned it a little bit, but what leadership opportunities have you gotten over the years?
Oh, wow. Anything from local church. We've had opportunities in student ministry. I was an administrative pastor, senior pastor for several years. We have served in that. I remember serving on the North Carolina State Youth Board for a time. I've served in different leadership capacities when opportunities would arise within different groups. The missions, we were able to kind of lead part of our team while we were in Bulgaria for some things as far as training and even here at the college, just kind of overseeing and providing leadership to the student body, and which we enjoy.
That's awesome. And so, who are some people you have looked up to in leadership as well?
So if I can say this, I hope it makes sense, and I hope I'm not completely way out of context with what I'm getting ready to say. And but I have never seen the movie Forrest Gump. Okay.
Okay.
I have seen snippets. Okay. And so what I get is you got this guy who's at all these amazing events, and he just happens to be there. Okay. And so I tell folks, if that's the premise, then I really think I'm the Forrest Gump of Free Will Baptist. And because I've had this incredible opportunity to be around some really amazing guys that have just poured into me. I remember early on, to be honest, I can go all the way back to I was saved, a guy named Bill Smith, who was a bivocation pastor, and he's the one who led me to the Lord, just poured into me he worked, he owned a business, he pastored a church, but yet he kept making time to pour into me. When I was in Nashville serving, when I first started, a guy named Jim Walker, who was my pastor, the home mission team back then, all went to our church. And so guys like Roy Thomas and Tryman Messer, and those guys they were kind to me. They would take me to lunch, and I'll be honest, I was just sitting at the table and just listening. Mm-hmm. And then, Archie Ratliff, my pastor when I was at Bethel for 15 years, probably poured into me as much as anyone. I had a professor when I was at college by the name of Jonathan Thigpen, who just really what I did in youth ministry was an extension of him. Mm-hmm. So God has blessed me through the years with just great men who have just loved me and poured into me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And, through those people you've looked up to and the experiences you've had, if you could define leadership in one word, what would it be and why?
Well, look, that one, the word just comes quickly, and it's the word servanthood. And because I believe, and Jesus said, who would be great among you? I mean, if you're going to be a leader, if you're going to have a place of prominence, if you will, then he defined it by servant leadership, and so again, the idea that if I can serve those around me and help lift them up, then to me that's the mark of a good leader.
Hmm. That's good. And so, Brother Cash, he wrote the chapter 14 in our book, and it's titled On the Go. And when I was kind of researching, originally I had another missionary, Amos Dillard,
Yeah,
planned for this chapter, and it just didn't work out because, church planning is a full-time gig. It's a lot to do. And so I'd reached out to Brother Ken Cash here about stepping up and taking that chapter, and he willingly did it. And the reason I thought about him was because I've heard that you'd been here, you've been there, you've been over there. Then not only on stateside, but then you picked up, sold everything you had, and went overseas to Bulgaria, and then eventually you're now at the college, and you've just constantly been listening to the Lord on where to go in your life. And so this topic of on the go, you talk about multiple different things, but as a Christian leader, why is it so important that we live on the go for Christ?
I guess for me, Casey, you know, I've always equated, because we're all in this journey, okay? And so you've got a journey God has for you. I have a journey. And the truth is, everyone who's listening to this, they have a journey. And, we're to be following the Lord. We're to be sensitive to his leadership. We're to hear his voice. And, I've always equated this this analogy, and that is our journey is like a chess game.
Mhm.
And so, we're one of the pieces on the board, but God's the chess master. Okay. And so when it comes to this chess match, there are some pieces that get moved 5, 6, 7 times in a match.
Mm-hmm.
And there'll be other pieces, they don't get moved at all. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And, but that's not up to the piece. That's up to the chess master. And because the chess master sees the whole board, strategically sees what's important for each of us to be strategically where we are for the duration we are, so that the kingdom work is being accomplished. And so being sensitive to God, allowing him to move us as he sees fit, and or not, depending upon how that journey is for us. But I just think it's important to be listening, hearing, and being willing to go, because we have no idea where God strategically needs us to fulfill what he's trying to do in reaching the world.
That's good. And, kind of at the beginning of your chapter, you talked about, God has unique plans for everyone in their life.
Yeah.
And you kind of highlighted Mark 8, and this phrase that kind of stuck out to me was that he emphasizes that saving our own lives will ultimately lead to losing them.
Yeah.
But sacrificing our lives for his sake and the gospel will save them. And so as followers of Jesus, we must ask, who are we living for? And so you said this little phrase, we live by dying. So what did you mean by that phrase?
We live in a culture in the States that, you hear it, it's the term the American dream. Okay. And Casey, I can't tell you how many times I've heard Christians, okay, that they may sense a tug in their heart for missions, or to go do this or to go do that, and but they feel this pull for this American dream that, I want the house, I want to be near home, I want to be, and the ultimate, and by the way, nothing wrong with any of that if that's what God wants for you.
Mm-hmm.
And but I just know there comes points in time, a point in time where, if I'm really all in, that there's a lot of me that has to die, and my desires, my wishes, and by the way, let me tell you what I found out, that when I die to those things, and I let God do in me what He wants, um, it's so much better than what I thought I had planned out.
Mm.
And so I think that dying is a dying of self, a dying of some desires, a dying to where I just say, God, I really want you to be Lord, not me.
Right.
And so that kind of, I don't know if that makes sense or not.
It does. And part of that is just, you also said that there's no greater fulfillment and wholeness in life than when we're intimately connected with our Creator
Yeah,
and living out that purpose He has for us.
yeah,
And that really goes right into, the next question you kind of talked about is, what is our Father up to? Which, I mean, that is, of course, that He's has the ultimate goal of restoring a broken world and bringing
yeah.
the world to Himself. And so, what role as Christian leaders do we have in God's ultimate plan of bringing the broken world to Himself?
I, so I'm having an opportunity right now. I'm teaching a small group at a church I've been doing for the last 10 weeks. And it's on, to be honest, it's been on this very topic. And so, it's very fresh right now. And, you know, what is God doing? God is bringing a lost world into Himself. Every individual is created for worship. And, John Piper made a statement, and it really resonates with me. And that is, mission exists because worship doesn't. And, we were created as a human race to worship our Creator. And because of a broken world, that's not happening. And so, therefore, the need of getting the gospel out and going and sharing Christ, it just permeates in all that we do. And I believe this. If every believer would just die to self, which we talked about a minute ago, and just live the word. He tells us to be holy, for He is holy, and we understand that's not it's not perfection for us. I mean, God's perfect, of course, and but it just means we're set apart. And what sets us apart is we're just living God's word.
Mm-hmm.
And if we would just live the word, go out into our community, our Jerusalem, our Judea, our Samaria, our uttermost part, whatever that is, wherever that is, and if we just lived it, a lost world's going to take note of it. And they're going to begin to ask questions, which now allows us to introduce the gospel to them. And so, our responsibility is just go out and live the word. Let our light so shine before men that they may see our good works and glorify our Father which lives in us. So, and by the way, what a privilege to get to do that every day.
That's good. And like right after that, you mentioned, people often ask the question why God has not returned yet. And you said that, and it was really good because it talks about in Second Peter
Yeah,
that God is not delaying His promise out of slackness, but out of immense patience and desire for all to come to repentance and not
yeah,
perish. And I was reading in Habakkuk 2 where in the beginning, Habakkuk was like, God, you need to punish the wicked people in Judah. And so then God was like, okay, well, I'm going to punish them with Babylon, which is the wickedest of the wicked.
yeah,
And then Habakkuk's like, hold on, wait a minute. I didn't mean everybody's not wicked. There are some righteous, but it talks about in the second chapter how Habakkuk's kind of confused why he's going to punish some righteous, but not the wicked Babylon. And it says in one of the verses, and this is the Casey version, that if it seems long, wait for it.
hmm
And because Judah was about to be punished not long after this was written, but Babylon wouldn't be destroyed for another 47 years.
yeah,
And so essentially there would be at least a generation who would not see that happen.
Yeah.
And so then it comes to that phrase that the righteous shall live by faith, which is the first time that's used in the Bible.
Yeah.
And that's where Paul gets it from in his letters, and even
Yeah.
the writer of Hebrews. And I think it's so important that just trust, like we've talked about, trust his plan, but most importantly, trust his timing,
Sure.
that God knows what he's doing.
Sure.
And that kind of goes right into your next question of that. So what is the plan? Because you point out the statistic that 5.5 billion people do not know or follow the Lord today, which, if you did not know, that is a lot of people. Um, and and then you even said, 1.5 billion people don't even have access to a Bible
Yeah.
in their own language. And, the plan is clearly that we're supposed to go out, and it's not just to watch people pray, like you said, and ask Jesus into their hearts, but we're supposed to make disciples and lead others.
Hmm.
And so you kind of just walk us through that process. You kind of mentioned it. There's 3 key actions as we go about the mission, which if you remember what they are, just like walk us through that process of that it's not just simply seeing someone say a prayer, but it's more than that, about making disciples.
Yeah. Matthew 28 is very clear.
Mm-hmm.
He tells us share the gospel essentials, and and make sure the people understand their need, and why they need, but don't get into anything more than that. Just share those basic, this is why you need Christ. This is why you need redemption, and then assimilating them into the body, getting them into a community of like-mindedness, and then the discipleship mode of really just teaching them. Jesus said it. He said it this way: teaching them all things whatsoever I've commanded you, which is really the whole counsel of God. Well, that's discipleship, and that goes on for the rest of our lives. Mm-hmm. And I read a statistic. Okay, if Casey, let's say you're gifted to share the gospel, and you led someone to Jesus every day for a year, okay, and you did that every year. First of all, praise the Lord. I'd be grateful. You'd be asked to do all these seminars of your great ability to share the gospel. But what would happen if you trained one person, and you can run the math, okay? We won't take the time to do that, but you can run the math. If you loved one person, you lived the word in front of them, and you shared Christ with them, they trust Christ, and then you begin to just take this phase of discipleship where you pour into them. And by the way, we know we're making disciples when disciples are making disciples. Okay? It's not that they can win Bible trivia. It is they can now do the exact same thing that you did for them. All right? And so if you do that, then in this cycle, in 33 years of just one-on-one discipleship, we could reach the world. Okay? And it really is God's model. Mm-hmm. And the statistics share we haven't been doing God's model. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, to me, it brings me a lot of hope, because when you think of the billions, you think, oh my goodness, what a daunting task. We can't do this. But the truth is, if we just simply follow God's model, one-on-one, you go after and reach someone and pour into them and love them and help cultivate their growth. And I do the same. And then they go and I repeat, 33 years, this world could be reached with the gospel. Mm. And, so is it doable? Absolutely. Is it God's plan? Is it his mandate? Sure. And, but man, we don't need to handcuff ourselves and limit us.
That's true. And you even put the chart on here. It's from Keith Phillips' book.
Yeah.
Of Making a Disciple. And you put the chart and you'll see the year, the evangelist, and then discipleship that takes place. And the statistic is that basically 90% of professing followers of Christ have never shared their faith even one time.
Yeah.
Which is, as you said in the next page, Houston, we have a problem.
Yeah.
And
And listen, I just saw a statistic that just blew. The 90% of believers have never shared their faith. I just saw this statistic, and again, I believe it's fairly accurate. I don't have any reason to doubt it, and from the research that was given and put into it, but it staggered my mind to think. And here's the statistic: 96% of church growth in America is happening by transfers.
wow.
4% of church growth in America is by conversion. That blows my mind.
That's sad. That's really
Yeah,
sad.
yeah,
It's just a, it's really just a, almost a, not a competition, but like a, just a swapping of sheep.
that's it.
And like there's no progress being made.
Well, and then we run into this. If we're not careful, we run into this. Okay, what am I doing to attract other Christians to here
Hmm.
instead of going to reach the lost?
Hmm.
And so yeah, that jumps at me.
Yeah, that's good. And like right after this, you talk about like, Houston, we have a problem, and you kind of talk about some of the main reasons people do not share their faith. And one of them is it's unaware of the, like, people are unaware of the importance of sharing their faith. So, kind of as leaders, Christian leaders, especially, that are going to have some role in a church, lay leader, Sunday
Mm-hmm.
school teacher, whatever it is, how can we communicate that and dire, grave importance of sharing the gospel?
For me, I think, Casey, it's like pretty much anything because it's true discipleship, and so they have to see it.
Hmm.
You know, if they see you passionate for souls and passionate about sharing and passionate about getting into people's lives and willing to invest the time to disciple, and if that's the model they see, then that's the model they will become.
Hmm.
And I'm fearful because you know because of the 90% that we talked about earlier. That's 90% of believers who probably haven't seen the model.
Hmm.
And but if they can just see if their mentor was somebody who was passionate about discipleship, sharing the gospel, investing, taking the time that's needed to do it, then that's all they know, and that's what they would end up ultimately doing themselves. So to me, the way that's going to happen is they have to see it,
Right.
and they have to see it that it's real, it's genuine, it's a passion of somebody's heart, and they'll catch it. They will because it's in us as a believer to do it.
Hmm. That's good.
Yeah,
And another reason that you mentioned was fear of the unknown. And you mentioned, Abraham, which, I mean, Abraham was constantly walking by faith that was looking for a city.
yeah.
And, kind of your personal testimony, which you can go into briefly, about when you went to Bulgaria, like kind of just, I know some people may not know you, so just kind of give a little insight to the fear of the unknown of when you left the States to go overseas to
Sure.
Bulgaria.
Well, look, the whole thing was that because Jane and I in our ministry have been going to Bulgaria for short-term trips for years, and we just kept seeing the need, and we just kept getting more and more burden for the people there, and I remember when Jane and I really began to think, hey, we could do this. Lord may want us to go, and when we committed to that, from that day, every step, just being honest, it was scary. I mean, first thing I met with my leadership and said I'm going to be resigning a church that was doing well. We've been there 10 years, and just not a reason on paper to walk away, and yet I remember sitting down with them and saying, hey, and they're like, well, Ken, what are you going to do? How are you going to support? How are you going to, how are you going to transition? And to be honest, Casey, I had zero answers. Okay. But I just knew this is what God wanted us to do. And I just remember, man, it was scary. And then it was, okay, we're going to sell our house. And now we're in essence homeless. We don't have a place to live. And I just remember how scary that was. And then, man, what am I going to do in the transition? Because we still have to live. And I don't know. I don't have any answers for that. And I just know this is what got that was scary. Then it was okay. We go off for 6 weeks of mission training and just kind of put everything on hold, and that was scary. And then ultimately downsizing to where we give away all our stuff, and I just every step from where we started to where we got on the airplane to leave, every bit of it. I'm telling you, it was another test where I could feel the anxiousness in my heart, but I knew this is what God wanted, and we kept going. And there were days, I'm telling you, there were days I thought, man, I can't do this. And but I knew this is what God wanted, and so we just kept going. And then we'd watch God. And here's the cool thing, okay? And I'll share this because this is a hindsight thing. So in the moment, you're not thinking this, you know. In the moment, you're thinking, oh no, we're gonna die. I mean, what's going to happen here? And but the truth is, every time we took that step, and we didn't know what, we didn't know how, we didn't know the details, but we just knew it was the right next step, and we would take it. The moment we took the step, Casey, I can't even tell you, God flooded us with peace, with reassurance, with a calm. And then the next thing, man, we're nervous, we're anxious, we're scared, but we know this is right. And we take that step. God filled our heart again with peace and a calm and a reassurance. And man, every time we took that, it didn't happen on the front side. It happened once we took the step. And the truth is, I could have got off that ride anytime. But oh man, I would have missed. I'm telling you, I would have missed so many times where I just watched God's peace flood my heart as we were taking these steps of this journey. And there's things, man, I am forever grateful that God allowed me, because we did this, the things where I got to see him like I never got to see him before. And it was just so good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And just seeing the Lord's faithfulness, and when you're following his will, you'll have a peace.
Oh, yeah.
There'll be a peace.
Yeah.
And kind of one of the final things that you talked about in this section of the problems of why people do not take that step of faith is that there's a powerful influence of materialism in our society. And so how, and you kind of touched on it, but how do we truly let go of our desires, our dreams, the things that we want to see accomplished, that American dream, and how do we truly just live for Christ?
So Rebecca got me a book, excuse me, for Christmas as we were transitioning. And the book was entitled Across the Street and Around the World. And it was a couple that were in their mid-40s. Both of them had really nice jobs. They lived in Texas, I think Houston maybe, but anyway, might have been Dallas, but it was in Texas. And they had their kids, and life was just really good. Both of them had great jobs. They were faithful in their church, and God calls them to the mission field. And there's a chapter in there that every now and then, and I'm telling you, I had to pull it out and read it. And I've read it dozens of times through this journey, and it was in essence the idol of the American dream, and it is the fact that as Americans, and again, I'm not minimizing, but what I am saying is we got to be careful that we don't allow this to become our God, because I've watched too many people say no to God so that I can have the comforts of being where I am here. The nice house, the nice cars, the nice jobs, living in the backyard of my parents, just all these things that we feel like we're entitled to. And the truth is, we're not entitled. When I said yes to Jesus, it was God, you have every right to tell me to do, where, how to go, to be. You have every right, and I think that's part of discipleship. We don't teach. It is, we want to make sure you know how to not go to hell one day, but the lordship side, we don't touch as heavy because what that may mean. And so I think there is a false understanding that the American dream is part of the Christian culture. The truth is, I think the American dream keeps us from fulfilling sometimes what God has for us to do.
That's
And because we'll say no to Him so that we can have all these things. And it's a constant. And anyone who's not in agreement with what I'm getting ready to say, I think they're denying themselves. And that is a constant battle. And it's a constant thing daily we have to wrestle with and make sure I have it surrendered to God, to where I'm not elevating it above Him. Is there a reason? If I said no to God, why? And if anything comes up that hints of the American dream, then I'm making it an idol above God.
That's true. And so, real quick in closing, we're running out of time, but
Yeah.
how can we, as Christian leaders, as Christians, prepare to go out into the world to serve Christ?
I think a couple of things. Number one, make sure you're in the Word, and you are. We can only give what we have, okay, and we can only be all in as much as we are. And if I am not daily allowing that Word to transform my life and to change me and to mold me more into the image of Christ, I'm only going to go so far. Okay. I heard this illustration. If you allow me, it'll take probably 1 minute. I was at a conference, pastor's conference. The speaker got up and he said that, he was speaking at a conference and there was a guy who had a private plane and offered to take him to the next site so he didn't have to pay for travel. And the guy was all excited because the speaker was going to ride in the plane with him and they were going to be able to fellowship, all this stuff. Well, anyway, they get to the airport, get in the plane, they take off, and all of a sudden they're flying and the engine stops. And I mean, can't get it started. It's a smaller plane, so it's gliding, but it keeps going down, down, down. And they're in kind of a hill country, a lot of trees, a lot of forest, nowhere to land the plane. Okay. And they keep coming closer and closer to the tree line. And they came up over this ridge, and someone had made a clearing there. Anyway, he landed the plane. The pilot got out, trying to figure out what happened. All of a sudden, he tells the speaker, "I am so sorry. I'm so sorry." And he said, "What's wrong?" He said, "We ran out of fuel." And, in my excitement to have you with me and to fellowship with you, I checked everything, but I forgot to check the fuel. Okay. And then that speaker looked at all of us as pastors, and here's what he said: "Don't you ever get in front of anybody and your tank's empty." Okay. And Casey, there's a world out there that wants to believe. I believe this with all my heart. They want to believe what we say is true. But when they look at a bunch of Christians that are out of gas, it's telling them it sounds right, should be right, but for whatever reason, it's not right. And they don't want it. But if they see our tanks full and we're sharing Christ and we're living Christ, I'm telling you, they will want Him. And so for me, the key is keeping the tank full.
That's good.
And make sure I'm in the Word, make sure I'm living out of that overflow so that Christ is seen, not me.
That's awesome. Well, that's awesome. And we just need to keep kind of use that out of context sometimes, but keep the main thing the main thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's your relationship with Christ and relying on Him. But I just want to thank you for coming on today. Really enjoyed it. And thank you, everybody listening. And I hope to see y'all next time. We'll have Aaron Howard, who wrote a very similar chapter, but it's on spreading the gospel. And so we're almost done with this series. But thank y'all for tuning in. And I hope to see y'all next week. Thank y'all.